Hello and welcome to episode 50 of No Particular Reason. And happy Valentine's to all of you who are actually celebrating the holiday. I am your host, Yanko, and here we have our co host, Kerri Lewis. Um, and welcome.
What's going on, everybody? I was just laughing because Yanko and I get into some what some might call interesting conversations before the show, and as we were getting ready to go live, we're talking about overloading our nervous system and burning sensation when you work with energy. So thank you guys for joining us for no particular reason as I assimilate or take in all this wonderful information that I always learn from Mr. Yanko. So, what's up, everybody?
it's it's gymnastics, like most of the people will say. It's
It
all
really is. And you know what comes to mind for me is I look at so many people like I believe source is mind, right? We co-create with mind. And yet, our logical minds need to understand is the very thing that keeps me separated from source. So I really work to just, I don't know, like just go with the flow, so to speak, and not try to understand. Because the minute I try to understand, that's when my nervous system is like, like, because that's my natural inclination. I come from logic. My family is very analytical and uh, definitely seeped in like academia and needing to have um, quantifiable data to back up. And my thing is the experiences I've had that allow me to truly know are not quantifiable. There's no evidence-based information that is going to convince another person that this is what I know to be true, but I just know it.
right. And and I, I was there once before when I had to verify and do a bunch of things, and um, like people say, if it quacks like a duck and moves like a duck, it must be a duck. So I've been there myself. But now more and more I kind of relaxing into being, not as much as like analyzing and doing things, which
Yeah,
is a
it
kind
just
of different way to be.
and it's not right or wrong, it's just where I'm at right now. And again, when I think about being grounded, staying grounded, that's where some of the greatest spiritual thought leaders, I fundamentally believe, have it right, and that you ground in this present moment, right? And this present moment is not in your thinking mind trying to figure out or understand anything. It's experiential, right? It's feeling into the seat that I am. It's listening to the vibration of my chest as I speak to you. It's, feeling the cool air against my skin. In that, you're not trapped in that thinking mind. You're not trapped in this idea that you have to understand anything. It's an experience, and that's where our superpower is. And I can't speak for you, but I know for me, my nervous system can feel overloaded when I get lost in the sauce of trying to understand, trying to make sense of, trying to figure out. That really has the ability to send me in like overload, and then it's harder for me to ground out. And that's where I find, from my personal experience, I lean into food or coffee or any of the things that I'm like, oh, I need something because this feels so unsettling for me.
Right. Yeah. And this isn't like the overwhelming. I think you're talking about more of like a mind nervous system overload. Correct me if I'm wrong.
well, mine is a body. I mean, it's not burning like you, but it's definitely a sensation.
Right. Because I was gonna say that the nervous overload I was talking about, it's the sensory perception that goes back to your brain from your body. So it could be like nerves from your palm, or nerves from your legs, or nerves inside your gut, and other things that are, sending signals back to the brain. And that's what I really meant when I said, getting the nervous system overloaded with signals. And that might be even like a thing from like being in the moment, or being more present, or in meditative state, because then you're more likely to notice things that you didn't notice before when you're in your mind. And at least to me, when I'm more present in the now, then I get to experience more things and sense more things, or smell more smells, or get all the sensories more acute to whatever it's happening.
Yeah,
So that's pretty
absolutely.
much it.
Well, it's
Yeah.
again, I'll go back and I know I've shared this before, but the most recent example I can give that feels maybe tangible or people can relate to is I had a client tell me that their partner thought they were losing their memory because they were driving down the street and this individual was like, "Oh, look at that and look at that," and their partner was like, "We've gone down the street a million times," and this person didn't recollect any of the images they were seeing because what I shared with them, it's not that they're losing their memory; they were never present to be aware of their
Right.
surroundings in the first place, which
Right.
I think happens so often for
Right.
so many people, and that's where it's helpful to practice awareness techniques like, feeling your skin, feeling the clothes against your skin and your body, smelling, because that helps you start to understand the difference between being caught in that thinking, that constant noise, that mental chatter, and feeling into what's going on in this actual moment.
I'm so glad you brought this in, because that's, and correct me if I'm, saying that wrong, or if you're thinking it's differently, but isn't that the point of like expanding your awareness instead of being narrow to whatever you perceive with your eyes? Because the eyes are pretty much the dominant factor in most people. But
Mm,
when you get to a point when you expand your awareness, you can still see with the eyes, but like you can say, like you said, you can feel the clothes in your skin. You can hear the wind blowing in the side in the same time that you haven't paid attention to, and in in a way expand more and be able to perceive more in that given moment, instead
yeah.
of just, yeah. So I think that's pretty much like what most people talk about when they say expand your consciousness, or expand your mind, or whatever way you want to call it.
That is so funny. So so now, like, totally changing the subject because clearly my mind went someplace else.
No,
It's
that's fine. I love
Valentine's
it when that
Day,
happens.
which
Yeah.
is totally a made up holiday, obviously. And actually, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, Valentine's Day was created in Worcester, my hometown city. Whoop whoop, because there was a card shop that wanted to make more profit, and so they came up with this um holiday to make more money, and it became Valentine's Day. So, what are your thoughts on the good old love day?
Well, I think that a lot of the things are changing through the years, and pretty much everything it's man-made, or any holiday or anything else. It's somebody thought about it, they come up with the idea, somebody else liked it, and for one reason or another, it it resonated with a bunch of other people, and they adapted it, like anything else. I won't say that it's a bad or good thing, um, because like if you see like say a hoodie that you like, and you take it, you just take it because you like it. So I think a lot of the holidays are that way. I don't get too excited about any particular holiday or any holiday at all, because I understand that somebody along the lines came out and made this holiday. And and the positive side of holidays is that they take people, together and put them in groups so they can, have more joyful times. But then on the other side, they could be made for, you know profit for somebody else, that, uh, again, like Valentine's Day, it doesn't have to be about candy or buying flowers and other things, but it could be just to show off that somebody it's really special to you. It doesn't have to have value attached to it. The same way as Halloween.
I
When
love
did
Halloween.
Halloween?
It's my favorite
when
holiday
when, when did
ever.
Halloween come up with this idea of candies? Like, if you go back, it's all about, witches and other things, and how did it come about to be all candy, kind of like a holiday.
Listen, give me a good Halloween any day and I'm a happy girl. Also, I lived in Massachusetts for years, and there's the Salem witch trials in Salem, Massachusetts. So that's very well known. But I would say the holiday that I love truly most ever is my birthday. I really gotta say, I love celebrating my birthday because I feel like, well, even in all of the expansiveness of co-creation, there's never been anything co-created exactly like this unique individual light being that's oneness and distinct all on its own. So I love my birthday. But in terms of Halloween. Well, see, I love Halloween too because I keep going back to Halloween. Valentine's Day, it's so funny because my ego still to this day sometimes is like, oh, I gotta feel special from my loved one. And then I think about it and I'm like, every single day, my love makes me feel special. So why do I need a specific day to highlight that? And that's why I'm always really appreciative of the love that I experience, because I feel seen, heard, and accepted every single day, which I would hope is what everybody experience in that special relationship with somebody, whether it's a loved one in an intimate setting, or whether it's with your children, or whether it's with a parent, or whether it's a friend. Being able to truly be able to feel supported, nurtured, accepted as you are without expectation or judgment. That, I believe, is the gift of love, really, when you get down to its core truth.
That's right. And I don't, if you experience like unconditional love, then it's a totally different ball game. Instead of that, want to possess kind of love, or constantly having to set some kind of expectations or fill something in, because that then you are just the way you are in your love, in your default mode of operation is love. But a lot of the times when the mind comes in and other things, you get away from that and you forget that experience. So you need kind of like a little reminder to, go back and re-experience that. But once you experience it and you have that experience and you know what it is like, then everything else becomes like this fake wanting to pretend to be this, but it's not quite the same, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes back to, I was asked to share some thoughts for a newsletter for this woman in her community about love, and I think much like what I was sharing earlier in terms of my need to understand, love is so obscure. It's so vast.
Mm.
It's in everything that it feels elusive, right? It feels really hard to grapple. And for me, when I think I understand love, I do have the ability to recognize that I'm so misguided that I have no idea what's going on.
Well, usually that's also a limitation of our way we communicate, like with words and everything else. Because you might be thinking of something, but the way you express it to somebody else, they might, when they complete the reference in their experiences, it might sound like something totally different to them, or they might get like totally the wrong idea. So it's not only with love, it's with a lot of different things. um, and this is going back to being in the moment, because when you're in the moment, it's just the moment. They don't need to be any explanation, or need to describe like this is a tree, this is a house, this is a person, or whatever. You're just in the moment, you're experiencing it. So you don't have to describe it to somebody, or you don't have to go internally to justify like what's going on, because you're just in the moment. And no words can get close to what the experience it's like. So not only love, but a lot of other experiences are like that. And I always give that example to people that I talk to, um, like explaining to somebody that haven't burned themselves, what it feels like to burn yourself. Once you burn yourself, then you know what the experience feels like, and you know what it is. But then you can describe it any way you want to, and the person will still not get close to what that experience is going to be. And then even when they understand what that experience is going to be, it's not going to be quite the same as you're going to experience it as burning yourself. And that might even be compared to levels of pain. So that's why a lot of people, when they say, well, how painful you're feeling your pain or whatever, because my threshold of pain could be different than your threshold of pain, or you might be experiencing pain in a totally different way than anybody else could. In the same way, some people might experience colors like smell, and some people might experience color like something else. And so it's all an internal process that's going in.
It
So,
is. And I mean, everything's perception, right? And it's so
right.
interesting that you bring that up because prior to us jumping on, I was working with Yeska on a mood board for the course that there's a collaborative effort we're making, and she's visual, and I am experiential through words. Like the words have such a visceral power for me, like this felt sense, whereas she is a visual aesthetic, like has the ability to see things that aren't there. And so that's where I truly encourage people to understand that there's, no matter how connected you and I are, Yanko, we're never going to see things the same way. We
We're
can't.
not we're not supposed to, because then
Exactly.
why would you be Kerri if we're the same and we're having the same
Yeah,
experience?
and that's why I, again, I'm constantly challenging people. What feels yummy for you? What causes you to understand um feelings of connectedness, feelings of unity, or openness? Because my interpretation of that is always going to be very different than yours. But when you give yourself permission to feel connected, to feel um at ease, peace, and those to me are the indicators that somebody's tapped into themselves, right? Not that I have to understand, but when they can have that experience within themselves that feels like, ah, like
Yeah.
coming home to themselves. Like it just makes sense and it doesn't have to make sense for anybody else. That is when I really believe that they're tapped in to themselves. It's
Yeah.
never going to make sense for me.
Right. In and I had a thought about when you were talking about it, of like how most people shut themselves off because they're afraid of being hurt. And because you're kind of like all about the heart, and like how you don't want to feel hurt and all that other stuff. But the reality thing is that you can still be open to connect and experience the experience of being hurt, or experiencing pain or something, but then still be open to connect with this other person or whoever you're connecting with, and experience that experience. Yeah, you're
Yeah, you
smiling, go
lost
ahead.
me. Wait, what?
Y-
Okay, see, this is
well,
the perfect example of different perspectives.
because we were talking about connecting with other people, and a lot of, and this is my personal experience and observation, that before, when I make an assumption and I kind of close down and I'm not connecting, because like I can feel somebody else's feelings, like if I'm in their presence, if if that's okay, where I can get in a room and fill the whole room, like what's the energy like, and and have that um, connection. But then sometimes that can feel overwhelming, and then I would want to like close down and not have that experience. So, and from that experience, I'm thinking that some people have the same kind of experience where they're closing themselves off and not connecting to other people because they're being afraid of feeling that hurt feeling, and not actually experience um, the moment or the joy of the moment, even so it might be hurtful to somebody. Does that make sense the way I'm explaining it now?
I mean, yeah, but it's really ultimately, when we simplify this for my understanding, it's giving yourself permission to have all of the experience. So not shutting yourself down when maybe you're feeling overwhelmed by the environment that you're in, or by um feeling the hurt and the suffering that somebody else is having or going through in that moment, but really just opening yourself up to being able to hold space for them, but also recognizing that um you don't have to take on that experience, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that what you were saying?
Well, not quite there, because like if I go even on more details, for somebody that haven't had that experience, um, it might sound um, kind of like finding pretty, or like love in the darkness, or like I can't even find the word to misogyny, like you're just like, oh, I just want to feel their pain and all that, because there is love and beauty and everything. We're just choosing what to label how, and how our perception is, and say, oh, this is really bad or this is really good. Does that make sense?
Well, it's interesting because I'm very close with somebody who, as soon as we're in a space with homeless people, you immediately see them like like their energy's like, nope, nope, not gonna, not taking on this experience. It's and I just laugh because it's such an observable shift in energy, you know? And I don't say anything, I just kind of witness it. And then I, on the other hand, really try to open up to that experience and like bear witness, because I, like you, I mean, I can feel a person suffering. Like I can really experience like their angst and their unease. But I believe in just being open to it. It's a gift of love. It's not dismissing their experience, but I also don't have to claim it as my own. I just kind of witness it and feel it and then send them love and then move on.
That's right. Yeah, because for the whole thing to exist, you have to have um, an experiencer and an observer too, like somebody that's having the experience and somebody that observed the experience and the other way around.
And yet we're both at all times. Like that is
Right,
duality. Like we're
right.
all of it at all times.
But here's the thing though, like when you go back to having a broader awareness, and this is why you're experiencing this other side of, because the other side, it's really you playing different character. I mean, that might be kind of crazy to understand or concept to somebody, but when you think about it, it's you looking back at you with the different persona, playing the whole thing. So it's almost like watching a play in a stage, how it unfolds, and the characters are playing their play, and in you might be experiencing the joy of the moment, or because the play it's gone, or the suffering, but it's ultimately that knowing that this is just a something that unfolds, not like, you know what I mean? Or did I lost you again?
No, well, I mean, I mean, even in psychology, right? There's always that narrative around um projection, right? We really are always projecting out what's going on internally, whether that is a story or a feeling or whatever. So in that respect, I fundamentally get that we are, I mean, our whole human experience is a result of our inner mind, is a
Right,
result of the perspectives of the whatever it is that we conjure up
right,
from, whether it's past lives or whether you believe just in utero to this experience. How we have made stories from all of our experiences up into this point right now is how we experience life externally up into this point right now. And that's why I encourage people to go within, because when you can start to examine your belief systems, you can start to change your external circumstances. That is the true power. If your belief is that you're unworthy, you will experience externally in your everyday life, with the interactions you have with people, with the experiences you have at a job, at school, whatever. Um, it's gonna feed that belief that
yeah,
you're
you'll get the
unworthy.
confirmation back, yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna
because that's
so
what you're looking for. Right,
that's why it's so imperative that people start to give themselves permission to look within and get curious about what those stories are, because everything's a mirror back to you. The challenge that I see for people is to start to get curious is super uncomfortable, because then we have to take ownership. I was witnessing somebody this week who um lost their job, and they've lost a few jobs, and all the time I listen to this story about it being the other person's fault, it not, and I'm like, of course I just witness and sit in love, knowing though that there's some part of their internal narrative that continues to believe that they're unworthy or whatever it is. And until they recognize that, they'll continue to have those experiences.
right. I mean, and again, that's going back to whatever role you're playing. In a lot of the people don't understand that a lot of the things that they're doing are automatic, and say they don't even know that they're in that situation when they can change the outcome or do anything to improve the way their life unfolds. So giving permission to oneself, it's one of the ways that you can go and kind of like test the waters and see if you like it or not like it. It doesn't it's like getting into a huge project. It could, when you look at it as a totality, it might look overwhelming, but then if you chunk it down to little things and you give it permission to do one thing at a time or one day or whatever, and all of a sudden this whole project doesn't feel like this big thing anymore. So um, with a lot of the things, especially with the mind, it's like that. Everything might look like it's way too complicated, way over your head, or something like that. And by giving yourself a permission to kind of experience it and see, and then you'll find out that it's not so bad after all. Like kind of like, let's see. This looks strange, but like let's find out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah, I'm with you on that one. Because that'll be the first step to have a different experience. And once you start having different experiences, then you might start thinking, well, why is this happening? Like this never happened to me before, and you try to find some kind of deeper understanding, and then you understand that, oh, I'm doing that because I'm going in autopilot, or because somebody told me that that's how it's supposed to be, or like, oh, I had this belief that comes up, and that's how the beliefs start to come up, and you start noticing them because they're always there. They were coming out, but you never paid attention. You just took them as is, like okay, that's how reality is, and let's move on. you know um but little by little, uh, it's a journey. You start going in a different direction because you can have both experiences. You can go in that journey of like improving yourself, or you can go in the journey of like separating yourself and getting really miserable, and going down the bottom until you hit rock bottom. And then you might have that aha moment. For some people it's different because like you get the ability to swing both ways. You can go like the one way or the other way until you kind of find a sweet spot in between, and you know what's going on. Like you experience the highs and you experience the lows, and then you kind of like, yeah, I have a better idea of like what's going on, maybe. you know um but ultimately, um, that's the one way to go. Give yourself a permission. I know it's contradictory the way I'm thinking of
Well,
it, but
everything
like I'm
everything
not
is
even thinking of it.
paradoxical.
Yeah, I'm not
Everything is
even. Yeah, I'm not even thinking of it. It's just like, all right, you having this experience. Like I can say, well, go have that experience. Like just look for this experience because if you haven't had the other experience. So some people have to have that like low experience to kind of say, well, that doesn't feel okay. I want to have this instead, um, and that's okay.
Well,
And you'll
that's
get to that
why
point.
it's so interesting. For anybody who knows me at all, they know that I am a huge fan of Dr. David R. Hawkins' work and the map of consciousness that he created in terms of measuring the vibrational output of people based on the energy they're in. But what I see a lot of times is people get hung up in this idea that there's something wrong with them if they experience that guilt or that shame or that anger. And what I propose to them, at least this is my understanding, is that guilt or shame is coming up for you to identify a belief so that you can release that belief, but also without me having experienced suffering as a result of feeling guilty or shameful or anger or whatever, how could I then really understand the experience I'm having of joy, of euphoria, of peace, of, yumminess. And that's why I am constantly encouraging myself first and foremost, guys, because all the work that I do with other people, I'm always doing on myself first. I always remind myself and others that uh contrast, we need to have those experiences to recognize what serves us and what doesn't, and then if it doesn't serve us, what do we need to examine and release, so that way we can shift up into those higher vibrational states. Because yes, it's great to feel joyful and light and happy and all that all the time, but we exist as a paradox. We exist as a contradiction. We are both light and darkness, much like you were saying when you're talking about me staring at the homeless person being a reflection of me. I am all, right? When we look at, we were created from creation, which encompasses everything, and that we exist in that creation. That means we encompass everything, and I believe, need to have those experiences to then release them to have different experiences that feel more yummy or more loving or more accepting or more peaceful.
There is a different perspective when you get to that, beyond that point of that experience. Everything becomes yummy, and and this is why it's hard to explain it with words, because when you have that experience that you sitting in joy or in suffering, but it's conceptual. You understand that it's suffering, and you see that the other person is suffering, and you're feeling the thing, but you understand that this is just the background of the foreground and everything how it's unfolding. Then it's totally different experience when you're having that experience. But everything, it's an experience on the end, and um, you're just experiencing yourself in a way, getting to know yourself by having those experiences.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you. I don't even know where that song came from, but as soon as you said that, I was like, oh shit. And that's me.
But no,
Like,
I
I
love that
want to know.
about you though, because like you're just ramble about or sing about whatever comes in. I'm kind of like the same way. Like I might go one way, and then I'm thinking, wow, well, that contradicts what I was just saying, because it just unfolds, and that's
Well, I
how it
mean, and
goes.
that's why, like, oh, this is where I mean, I think this is so beautiful because it really, our conversations always end up full circle. They always circle around back to whatever was coming up in the beginning. But truly, that's where I personally work to surrender into the now rather than trying to figure out or understand anything, because it's too vast, it's too obscure. Like, I think about Rumi, or I think about Hafiz, and I think about all of my teachers who say, if you think that you can understand anything, surely you should laugh, because you can't. And
Of
that's
course.
what I said to my beautiful friend Gail Kraft. We were doing a workshop last week, and I listen to so many people contradict themselves all the time, and I'm certain that I do it too. I mean, I know I do, because we are a contradiction. But where they're like, well, I don't usually listen to speakers, but I listen to this speaker, or I don't usually work with a coach, but I'm working with this coach, or I don't usually. And I'm like, we do it all. We like, and that's why we're just constantly unfolding. And I work to have language of, I just am. I may work with somebody this week, and I may not want to work with anybody next week. I may study a speaker this week, and I may not want to align with that. I fundamentally don't know. And that's why for me, I really work. Oh, I just had an epiphany. I had an aha moment because I always set intentions in the morning, guys. And usually it's to show up as love and to laugh often. But even more than that, it's to remain curious about the unfolding of myself and others because I have no flipping idea what I'm going to experience today. I have no clue until I am in it and then see how it goes. And that I think is why this show is beautifully named, because there's no particular reason for anything. It's just the way it's gonna unfold. And when you can witness it in like curiosity, even if it feels icky, sticky, suffering it also is like, oh, that's so flipping cool. That's like really fascinating.
Right. And now you get it. Yeah, there's no reason for anything. It's just an experience that everyone has. There's no I don't know. I think it might be our linear way of thinking because we have past, future, present, that, and in that also teaches us of thinking like, well, because if this is happening, there must be a reason for this to happen, or for this other thing to happen, and we constantly analyze and do other things, but it's just an experience. There isn't really a reason. Um, for anything. It seemed like that way because when you look back in your past, future, present, it might seem that way, but it's really this moment, this now, this is all this is all that is.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is who I am now is completely different than who I was even yesterday. Like it really fundamentally that's true. And yet I cling so tightly to this idea of who I was yesterday.
Right, right. And that's what I was gonna say. That if you can get over that idea that you have to be somebody for somebody, or that you know because of that you have to do this, and you keep bringing your past into the present, or you keep fantasizing about the future or some version of you that doesn't exist, you're missing the whole point. Like if you can get over that idea, then you can just be, because everything changes. And and and, and it's like different roles that you're going through, if you have to put it in like words. Some of the teachers say that because like, and I'm starting to see that, like right now we're doing online things. Later when I get to the car, I'll be a car driver. Then when I get to the store, I'll be a shopper. I'll play all those different roles. And but that doesn't define who I am. It doesn't define me as me, because everything changes from moment to moment to moment.
Yeah.
So if you get over the idea that this is who you are, and this is why I'm saying, if you find out who you are, you go within and find out, and is this really me? Like, is this who I am? Am I this person, or am I the hypnotist, or am I this other thing, or whatever? All those things are going to fall away, because those are just titles and things that one gives to yourself, or other people reflect back to you.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. As you were talking, I was thinking about the Kobe Bryant documentary that Nana and I just watched. And it really got me, you know, reflecting around the idea that, again, to your point, we are so vast and so multidimensional. We are so, um, like, and I think about people like Kobe Bryant, where a lot of people see him as this legendary figure, and a lot of people see him as a rapist. A lot of people, but I gotta tell you, I think, you say that we have these experiences for no reason. I don't come from that lens. Maybe that will change later on. It's possible. Right now, I think about the person that Kobe was at one point. Oh, gave him the information he needed to transmute into being somebody completely different, who showed up as somebody legendary, as somebody who is a rape thriver or overcomer, respects and admires immensely, because he used one experience to transmute into a different person altogether. And that's why I fundamentally encourage people, you know, I don't condemn anybody. I really don't. I am too small, and I cannot possibly know why things are unfolding the way they are, but I do trust and love. And this is where I come back to love all the time. And I really truly believe that nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the piece of love. Like, love transcends everything. It is what we are, it's what we encompass. And the minute I make a judgment, I've stepped out of love. I've stepped out of that understanding. When I'm in love, I don't have to know. I don't have to understand. I just have to stay in that place. And in that, I know a lot of peace. And I also fundamentally believe that's where we transmute and transcend the idea of separateness and ego.
Um, yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. Um, no, really, like nothing comes in. I'm just, it's empty. I was gonna say that you keep going through, and this is my experience. You're going through different experiences in just to give you the opportunity to experience yourself differently. Let's put it
Yep.
that way. So like if you experience yourself from this perspective, then you can experience yourself from the other perspective, and it's more of a experiential thing. You keep getting the experiences because ultimately I think when you have the experience, then you can relate to yourself more and get to know yourself more, or like the other version of self, and you can relate to other people more because you had a similar experience, and you get to understand what they're going through or what kind of experience they're having in the same time. So I don't think there is like a transmutation or anything that it's happening. Yeah, there is a change that it's happening because you had that experience and now you're having this other experience. um and to me it's more of a, you didn't know that you're going to have a headache or hangover after drinking too much alcohol, but then when you get another morning and you have the experience, then you have that aha moment, and you're like, wow, that was kind of good, but now I don't feel so good, and you hop on the next experience and you experience something else. It keeps going so that you get to understand or get to know yourself better, because like everything, it's a different version of yourself that's having to look back to yourself and have that experience. It's
I do want to add
complicated.
one more thing though for our listening audience. Whatever experience we're having, whether this is what I understand. All experiences, and again, Yanko and I may differ in language or understanding, are transformative, but there is universal laws that we must actually recognize and contend with. So, going back to the Kobe thing, there is cause and effect, right? And there is, uh force is always going to create opposite and equal force. And so while we are having these human experiences, and from Yanko's point, we're not meant to judge them good, bad, right, or wrong, and I agree with that. We also have to recognize that how we show up energetically will always be mirrored back to us. And so what I mean is, if I take an action that is harmful towards somebody else, I will absolutely experience an opposite and equal action
Right.
back to myself, because that is just the universal laws of energy. That's vibration. And so it's not for people to, I fundamentally want people to understand, yes, we're just having an experience, right? And I believe they are meant to help us make a choice, for me anyway, to shed the old belief systems and truths that I had to experience something differently. But I also had to take ownership of the choices that I made, created a lot of the painful experiences that I have had in my lifetime. And it was once I shifted that understanding, I started to attract more loving experiences.
Right. And I think you're talking about like like the universal laws, like they're saying like karma and all that. That whatever you sow, you shall reap. It's kind of like that, yeah. Um, but I think that's just how this reality time space is that we're in. Um,
Yeah, I
I want
fundamentally.
I want think that this applies to other parallel realities and other dimensions or even like different universes. Um, but I don't know, 100%.
I mean, I think everything has a polarity. Everything holds degree. When you think about it in terms of like, I don't know, but I fundamentally believe that there are certain truths that are non-negotiable, and that transcends time and space reality. I think in any dimension there's polarity. In any dimension there's cause and effect. And I mean, think about whether if you look at biblical text or different experiences in the Bhagavad Gita or the Tao Te Ching, all theology talks about like fallen angels, right? These are people who are in a different dimension, so to speak, right? So those universal laws, I think, transcend. And again, this is just my fundamental understanding, and I could be wrong, who knows, but it transcends this time and space reality, and it just is. It's a law. And so, understanding those laws, you can make choices that help you experience more peace, more love, more joy, more laughter, more connection, or you make choices that help you experience more division, more fear, more anxiety, more guilt, more shame. And that is just based on truly the beliefs that we have, which is why I think it's super important to go inward and examine those and release those. And also our habits and behaviors, which is also why I think it's important to recognize what actions we take and how they impact us and other individuals. And if it feels counter to love, to compassion, to connection, then maybe making a different choice.
No, 100%. I love that. I was just sitting here and I had this thought like, how did we start it with Happy Valentine's Day and we ended up here? It's weird. It's like we go on those huge, tangents about different things. And, as we're getting close to the clock, I had this thought just, pass my mind. We started with candy, Valentine's Day, love, and everything, and this is where we ended up.
Well, listen, Yanko, for anybody who's watched any of our episodes, we are not the light, easy show where you're just going to kick back and laugh all the time. We're either going to give you, I mean, you're going to experience something, either complete perplexedness or curiosity or whatever. But I think it's perfect. I think it works out.
No, I think so too. I think having these conversations or this type of conversations where you go in and be able to speak whatever comes to your mind or whatever you think you can, speak in that moment. Gives the ability to others to, go and, say, that's kind of interesting. Maybe there's something to it or something else,
Yeah,
different perspective, I would say,
different perspective.
which
Well,
is
with that,
great.
guys, we're gonna jump a couple minutes early because this lovely lady has to meet with a beautiful soul, and I'm super excited to talk with them. So, what I would leave you with this week is, yeah, curiosity. I mean, just the willingness to not know, giving yourself permission to assume you don't know anything. And I really work hard to show up that way in all areas of my life. Like, I'm doing this SERAC training to help with my community, and it's easy for me to be like, oh, I know that this and this is the way it is. Instead, I'm like, I know nothing. I'm going to come in here, and as I do, I always take away something that I probably would not have understood if I went in there thinking I knew everything. So just I encourage you to remain curious, and of course open to love, because love is just, it's what we are, but it's also so yummy, man. Oh, it's so good.
And she really does, because we've been knowing each other for quite a bit now, and I can tell you she really does go with like open mind and non-judgmental state of being, like, okay, let's see. So
I want to touch on that because it's a choice, guys. It is a choice. I'm going to leave you with a true experience that I had. So I'm sorry I'm putting my sister on blast, but it's a me thing, not a her thing. So I grew up being very competitive against my twin sister, right? That was the narrative that I experienced, and not being good enough, right? And so even at 44 years old, when I have experiences, that rears up this belief. And it's not the first thing that comes to mind. I just make a different choice. And it's the same with judgment, guys. It's not that I don't have an ego that doesn't try to convince me that I need to judge a situation. I do. And I want you all to know this because I struggled with this. I thought that people who were enlightened transcended, didn't experience those things, and that's bullshit.
now they do.
But I get to make a choice, and so it comes up, and then I'm like, ick, that doesn't feel good. What feels more nurturing and supportive? So for anybody out there who's like, oh, no, I am just as human as you. I can be in judgment if I don't catch myself. The difference is I catch myself, and I just make a choice to love instead of judge.
That's right.
Cool.
And I'll say, and I'll leave you with that. Don't take life seriously. Just laugh more and have fun.
On the good ship, lollipop, it's the great trip to the candy shop where bonbons play. I don't know the rest. Okay,
I
bye
don't know
guys.
that
We love
song. I was gonna
you.
join it, but I don't know it. All right, people. Nice hanging with you, and we'll see you next week.